is part of the Interview Success series. So make sure that you watch all 3 parts of these videos, and actually all of the videos that are in these series, to remember that there are 3 parts to an interview. So the first part is preparing for your interview and what you do during then. Your second is what you do during your interview, and third is what you do after your interview. And today's video is going to be about what you do after your interview. So once you've picked out your perfect outfit, we're very confident going into your interview, had your interview, and ran out of the door once your interview was over, there's still things that you need to do after. So this video is going to be about what do you do after your interview, and there are 4 tips that I'm going to give you today. So let's get to it. So the very first tip that I'm going to give you is debrief your interview. And this is something that I've kind of established over the last, however many years I've been interviewing. And I've really learned to do this because it really helps me in my future interviews. So debrief your interview means that right after your interview, when everything is fresh in your head, sit down with a piece of paper and write down everything that pretty much happened. So who you interviewed with, who you met, write down the questions that the interviewer asked you and how you responded to those questions. And the reason why you want to write these down is because there's been plenty of times where after an interview and I think about it, I'm like, oh shoot, they asked me this question and I kind of stumbled and I didn't really know how to respond to it. But now that you wrote that question down, you can, study it a little bit. And then if that question is ever asked in another interview, you know exactly how to respond because you wrote that question down and you took some time to think about what they asked you during that interview. So that's always important and very helpful just in case you ever have that same question or a similar question in the future when you're interviewing, with other organizations. So also write down the questions that you asked the interviewer and how they responded. The reason why you're going to do this is because it's important to refresh your memory, know how the person responded. If you're asking about the organization, maybe if you're asking about work-life balance and you want to learn more about the organization, well, those are going to get you some facts. So if you ever have to go back and say, okay, well, I know what this organization is all about, or even know more about your interviewer because you asked them questions about themselves. And this is definitely going to help when you write your thank you letters. But that's a tip that I have coming up. So after you debrief your interview, the second thing you're going to want to do is to write your thank you letter. Always, always, always write your thank you letter within 24 hours of interviewing with the person you interviewed with. This is important because it sets you apart from all of the other candidates who have interviewed, and it gives you a time to thank them for interviewing you and spending time to learn more about you and your experience. And this is really vital. So make sure that you send a thank you email. I used to actually write a handwritten note. Well, not handwritten, but it would have a note that had my address, my name at the top, and it kind of looked similar, or at least the footer or the heading of the paper looked exactly like my resume. And then I would type out the thank you letter, and then I would personally hand it in to the administrative assistant. So I'm gonna have a video on how to write a thank you letter or a thank you email. So make sure you take a look at that video because it's gonna give you some more details on how to go about doing that. So remember, you want to do this 24 hours after your interview. So whether it is handing it in the day after your interview to the administrative assistant and letting that person give the person you interviewed with that letter, or to email that person a thank you email within 24 hours. Okay, so third is following up. So when you had your interview, hopefully one of your questions that you asked during your interview, or at least you talked about it with the interviewer, what your next steps are and when you should follow up with them, that's what you should do. So if the person said, hey, we're looking to fill this role within the next 2 weeks, so you should hear back from us around that time. So what you need to do is wait 2 weeks and wait to hear back from that person. And if it hasn't been 2 weeks, if it's over 2 weeks, well, then will be a great time to email that person and follow up with them and said, hey, I'm still interested in this position. I think it would be a great fit for me. And I would like to know, what the timeline looks like for you all to make a decision. So always make sure you follow up. Okay. And then lastly, your 4th tip is always stay connected. I'm going to make a video on how to network after your interviews, because I think going on interviews is a great way to network with people, but only after you've had an interview with them. You don't want to be requesting them on LinkedIn while you're in the interview process. So that's not a good idea. But I'll make a video on how to network after an interview, especially if you actually don't get the job. But the 4th tip is to make sure that the people that you've met during your interview, maybe you met with some associates or some current employees and you had a conversation with them, the person you interviewed with, it's a possibility that you can connect with them on LinkedIn. So make sure you know their name and their title and all of that so you can find them. But after your whole interview process is over with, wait a couple of weeks and then find these individuals on LinkedIn, especially if you didn't get the job. And if you had a great interview with them, you had a great conversation, it just wasn't a great fit, well, guess what? You can network that way after they've made their decision. So that is definitely important. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. If you have any comments or you have any tips of what you've done after your interview and it's helped you out, please write them in the comments. It's always a great way for us to be a community, help each other, help lift each other up, and kind of share our experiences, because that's the only way we're all going to be successful. So always remember, until the next video, enlighten, uplift, and encourage, and I'll see you in the next video.